Folks, you recall that I'm trying to think of like if the conservative movement has any tenets left that it actually abides by, because they're all about first principles and principles and local control and anti-federalism. We're not talking about it's just that we're not neo-Confederates. We're against, the bigness. That's where you get this corruption. We're libertarian in our perspective. And, states' rights and local control. Remember how much they would talk about local control that they wanted? And it wasn't just about maintaining segregation. It was just about the principle of local control. We know how to handle things. A city, a school board in a town understands what the school needs. We don't need federal statutes saying that we have to integrate our classrooms or that we have to have bathrooms for trans folk. That's just, let the local people decide until they decide something that we don't like, and then we just throw that out the window.
So, Governor, if a town like Austin decides to, we're going to put the money someplace else, what can you do?
So the state has so many options. One thing that I announced last week was the fact that when we go into our next session, the state will take the power of annexation away from cities, as well as cause them to lose the ability to get revenue from people and entities that they have annexed in the past. Second, I have another proposal out that will defund cities, that defund police departments, and then I have more options coming. But what I'm doing right now, I have this Back the Blue pledge that I'm asking every candidate running for office this November to sign this pledge. We want everybody in Texas to support this. We have well over 60,000 people who have signed this pledge to back the blue to prevent the defunding of law enforcement in the state of Texas. If you want to sign it, you can go to hashtag Texas backs the blue so that we can work together to make sure that we do not have in Texas what you've seen in L.A., in Portland, in Seattle, in Chicago, and New York. That type of crime, run amok without supporting law enforcement is unacceptable. In Texas, we are going to back our law enforcement to prevent mayhem in our communities.
There's so much BS here. It's sort of hard to know where to start, but we've seen this. We've seen, I think it was in North Carolina, South Carolina, where they passed laws to prevent cities home rule. Ostensibly, they would do it over trans bathrooms, but it was also to keep cities and small town cities from, let's say, developing a $15 minimum wage. And they want to stop Austin or any other towns from basically working their own budgets, right? You will be punished if you determine that it makes sense for you to take money from the police department and put it into social services. You will be punished if you decide that, hey, maybe we shouldn't have cops going out and with guns evicting people from their homes. Maybe we can get some other process in which to do it, or dealing with folks who are having mental issues so that somebody doesn't get shot. It's unbelievable. I want to say hypocrisy, but it's not hypocrisy. I mean, it is, they have an authoritarian streak about what they want to do, and they just dress it up in other ways, and people buy it. I mean, I don't necessarily have a problem with states saying that our aid is dependent upon X, Y, or Z, or with the federal government saying that to states. And it's a function of what the policy is. And I state that because I'm honest. But there's not a single conservative commentator or YouTuber or governor or any of these people who won't pretend that they are defending some type of principle.
Yeah. That's because they appeal to fundamentalists, I think, fundamentally.
and then really authoritarians. Like
Yep.
we'll sell this if it means, segregation, or it means some anti-trans policy, or if it means, that we're going to pour money into the police. And then he goes on to lie about this like mayhem. There's stories coming out now in Oregon. This is amazing. When we talk about the sort of the lies that you will see generated on Fox News or by the president or by Republican lawmakers or governors or whatever it is, put up this tweet by the FBI, I think it is. There are hundreds of thousands of acres on fire in Oregon, in Washington state. Well, millions between them and California. It is devastating. In Oregon, apparently, there are parts of the state where you can't see 40, 50 feet in front of you because of the smoke. They are terrified as of yesterday of like mass casualty events, in part because they can't evacuate people quick enough, and in part because there are people who are refusing to evacuate. Because on Facebook, there's these right-wing memes that the fires in Oregon are being set by Antifa people or Black Lives Matter people, and they're coming to ravage their towns. So the FBI Portland division had to put out a notice on Facebook and on Twitter. FBI Portland and local law enforcement agencies have been receiving reports that extremists are responsible for setting wildfires in Oregon. With our state and local partners, the FBI has investigated several such reports and found them to be untrue. They are begging people. There are stories now of people saying, like, I'm not leaving my town because Antifa is going to come in and take everything like they did in Portland or something.
I can't find the tweet right away, but there was some sheriff's department that's like, hey, we know you're just trying to help, but don't be stopping cars coming into your towns to check if they're Antifa.
It's unbelievable. There are people who are going to die because they're not leaving their towns because they believe this insanity on Facebook. And then you've got governors of Texas going out there and saying, I've got a Blue Lives Matter hashtag email collection for my next election, so I can raise money from you. Sign the, petition. What petition? You're the governor. You're threatening to cut funding from Austin if they decide how they're going to allocate their own city budget. You don't need a petition from people across the country. He's just doing that to get fundraising emails. And then he's saying that, like, we're not going to allow, like, what's happening in Oregon to happen here in Texas. It's just unbelievable. The level of disinformation that flows through this country. I mean, people can argue with my opinion about what is the best policies. But there was a piece, I think it was in The Economist, about interviewing some, I think they were in Ohio or Wisconsin or Michigan, construction workers about the election. Some guy said, I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. First of all, he's fixed healthcare. That's just a lie. I mean, Donald Trump hasn't done anything. The Republicans didn't do anything. That's not an opinion. They didn't do anything. The only thing that they're doing is they are challenging the entire Affordable Care Act. So to the extent that they haven't done it yet, but they are threatening all the pre-existing conditions and all this. They haven't done anything. It was a whole litany of things that he talked about that were just complete fabrications. He believes them. Now, it's quite possible that he's making more money in construction than he was, and that somehow this has tainted his perspective on all these other disparate issues. But the reality is that there are people who are just unreachable. And they are living in a completely different universe in terms of understanding what's going on in the country. Or this guy doesn't really care about those things and he just knows he likes Trump, and so he's just going to say this to justify why he's voting for Trump, or maybe there's other reasons why he's voting for Trump that he doesn't feel comfortable expressing. Maybe it's some combination of those. But we have seen just a barrage of just out and out lying by the Republicans. And I still think the press does this poorly in terms of like holding them to account. They're better when it comes to Trump, but I think it's just giving them an opportunity to sort of pivot if Trump loses. They can actually go back and pretend that the Republicans aren't disingenuous. Can you imagine what the scandal would be if there was a Democratic governor who wrote something to the effect of the opposite of like liberal men have trouble growing balls or something like Ted Cruz did? Yeah, like that would be, it was like a 3-week scandal during the Obama administration because he wore a tan suit, for God's sakes.
Yeah, can you imagine if Obama was like, yeah, we sent some marshals in there, took care of it real quick.
Yeah, we shot the guy.
Just got him. The freak out. I mean, we should be definitely freak out about Trump.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost unimaginable. All right, well, let's do